Hi again guys, and welcome to another installment of Rivals, the series on Gran Turismo 6 in particular, where we pit natural rivals against each other in a top trump style, just for fun, purely spec-based versus match, to find out which one wins on paper. Now, in this particular Rivals match, we're pitting the three kings of speed against each other. Now, when we say three kings of speed, I'm not talking about in-game cars, because obviously the Nismo GTR and the Pagani Huayra can outrun these vehicles. We are, though, considering these cars which are the three kings of speed in real life. Now, in-game, of course, we don't have companies like Koenigsegg and Hennessy, but in a match between the Veyron, McLaren and TVR, which would win? Well, let's find out. First up, we have the Bugatti EB16.4 Veyron. EB16.4, of course, refers to Ettore Bugatti, who founded the company, 16 cylinders, 4 turbos. And this car is all about big numbers. It's designed to be not necessarily just the ultimate speed machine, but the ultimate technical achievement. It's got a huge engine, huge power, massive torque, significant weight as well, all-wheel drive to get all that power and torque down to the road, and incredible performance. But the Veyron's weight, size and cumbersome nature mean that it's not necessarily the most ideal choice of track cars. Now, around Fuji, it managed to get around this track in 1 minute 31.4, and although you don't really have any point of reference for that, you'll see in just a second that that's a lot better than you may expect. So overall, the Veyron is a vehicle which, of course, has incredible straight-line performance, but in order for it to be competitive around the track, it requires very, very careful setup, and even then, it's not the quickest of vehicles. So that's overall for the Bugatti Veyron's overview. Now let's move on to the TVR Speed 12. Now, the TVR Speed 12 is a vehicle which I absolutely love. As far as Gran Turismo 6 goes, it is completely misrepresented. The top-end performance is pathetic compared to what it deserves to be in relation to its rivals, and in real life, this is a vehicle which unfortunately never really got the chance that it deserved. This was a vehicle designed specifically to take on the McLaren F1 in its own category, the fastest car in the world. And whereas the approach that McLaren took was that of sophisticated technology, advanced engineering, etc., the TVR took a clever, yes, but much more traditional approach. Pure power, low weight, and pretty much automatically insane speed. Now that, it certainly has. A 7.7 litre naturally aspirated V12, in fact, the most powerful naturally aspirated factory-built road car ever at 880 horsepower, means that although the TVR doesn't actually have a world record, it goes without saying, it is one of the fastest cars in the world. Now, as far as Gran Turismo goes, it's always been known for being a challenging vehicle around the track, but it's actually a very good track car. And even though in some ways it doesn't necessarily have quite as impressive numbers as something like a Veyron, the great thing about the Speed 12 is that it manages to take the best of both worlds. It has the kind of sheer power and torque that you'd expect from a Bugatti, but combines it with the kind of racing ability and lightweight construction of something like a McLaren. And for just over $250,000 credits, the value is incredible. What though about the McLaren? Well, as far as the McLaren goes, although the Bugatti is probably by this point the best known of the three cars, the McLaren is probably still the most respected. The McLaren completely changed the supercar world when it debuted with incredible leaps in technology, so much so that many of the best supercars to come out since were based on it. Porsche, of course, used the McLaren F1 to build the Carrera GT in development, and Bugatti themselves studied the McLaren when first developing the Veyron. It's still an incredible machine, and unlike Bugatti, who never raced the Veyron, and TVR, who had very little success with the Speed 12 in racing, McLaren had huge success in racing. They won at the Le Mans, various other series where they completely dominated, and they managed to transfer that incredible performance into a genuine road car. It's still a hugely respected machine, and as a testament to just how good the McLaren F1 is, despite being heavier than the TVR and less powerful than both cars, it's the fastest of the three around the track. Here at Fuji Speedway, the McLaren posted a time of 1:29.9, about 0.4 of a second quicker than the TVR, and about 1.4 seconds quicker than the Bugatti. So although it doesn't have the sheer power as the other two, it certainly has the ability. So that's it overall for the overview of the three cars. Now let's go to our comparison. Now, of course, all three of these cars are incredible machines, and they're brilliant in their own way, and ironically, all three of these vehicles aren't quite as good as far as speed on Gran Turismo 6 at least, as you'd probably expect them to be. The Bugatti, of course, is extremely fast, but the high-speed handling is awful. It can be tuned to improve that, but even so, it can be relatively easily beaten by the likes of the Wherein and the Nismo GTR. As far as the TVR goes, it's incredibly quick around the track and for acceleration, especially mid-range, but the top speed is no way near what it deserves to be. And as far as the McLaren goes, well, apart from the fact that it doesn't have anywhere near the power that you'd arguably hope that it would, it's also, like the TVR, far, far slower than a vehicle of its legendary status deserves to be. Around the track, all three of these cars can be devastatingly quick under the right circumstances. But in a straight line, for acceleration to some degree for the Veyron, and especially in terms of top speed for the TVR and the McLaren, they're nowhere near as good as they deserve to be. That being said, they are three brilliant vehicles. So now, of course, let's compare the specs and find out which one, purely for the fun of it and the on-paper numbers, wins. Well, first of all, you can see that straight off the bat, as we said earlier, the TVR gets a very clear victory as far as price. It's not much over a quarter of the price of the McLaren and about 8 times cheaper than the Bugatti. So that point most definitely goes to the TVR. As far as engine capacity, which as we've said before is not always the be-all and end-all, smaller engine cars are very good as well, but for the sake of the top trump style matchup, the Bugatti does win. But not by much. The Bugatti has an 8 litre, of course, to the TVR's very close 7.7 litre. And that's 7.7 litres coming from 4 cylinders less. As far as PP, the Bugatti is significantly higher, around 40 pp higher than both vehicles at 703, and also unsurprisingly, for sheer power, it's an easy win for the Bugatti. The TVR does have huge power as well, but that 1,324 horsepower of the Veyron is very difficult to beat. As far as torque, the TVR also wins at 1,109 foot-pounds by a significant margin. The TVR and especially the McLaren are nowhere near that kind of torque. As far as weight though, the TVR wins, which is perhaps surprising given how bulky the car looks. 943 kilos with the full weight loss package completely eclipses the Bugatti by literally half a ton. And it's still significantly lighter than the McLaren. And so that point goes to the TVR, and the horsepower per tonne does as well, at a huge 1,203 horsepower per tonne in fully tuned form. And although, as we said, the lap times are not given points in any of these matchups, it is interesting to note that the Bugatti was the slowest of the three, not surprisingly, but not by much. The Bugatti did a 131.4, the TVR did a 130.6, and the leading McLaren a 129.9. So the difference in lap time between the three cars is probably a lot closer than you'd initially expect. So the outcome of this rivals match gives the victory, as predictable as it probably was, to the Bugatti, with 4 points. Then comes the TVR with 3 points, so right in behind the Bugatti, and surprisingly, with no points whatsoever, the fastest of the three, the McLaren F1. Which just goes to show, of course, that these rivals matches are to be taken as pure fun. The McLaren was the quickest of the three around the track, even though it scored no points. So overall, I would definitely recommend checking out at least one, if not all of these three brilliant cars in their own way. And that's it overall for this particular matchup. So as always, if you would like to hear more in-depth reviews of these three vehicles, be sure to check that out in the description below, along with their 3 posted lap times. And as always, if you would like to suggest rivals matches, feel free to do that in the comments down below. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.